Maybe I could try... What's like the first dungeon of the game? At least in Ul'dah. Cutter's Cry? I just want to see, like, what it looks like. Just curious. See Vampiric? Is this the entrance? I don't think this one's open. Yeah, that's something else. What's like the first one that I already did? You said, Copperbell? Or Swiggy Woods? Yeah. Let's see. Satasha's the lowest level one. How do I... Yeah, I get it. Like, you sign up and then... Right, where is the entrance to this? It's not really... It doesn't really tell me here. Okay, well, this is regular. So, but can you do an NPC party on hard? Like, how does the hard thing work? That's what I was wondering. Do I need to go to the entrance? I can't do hard at all until after. Oh, okay. That's why. Gotcha. I could do... Howling Eye again. But like, how does the equipment drops work in this game? Aren't they like set? Like, I don't think I'd get better equipment if I did this, would I? I mean, I'm not really worried about experience. I'm just kind of trying to learn like how the general getting equipment works. Like, is there a way to get better equipment for me now? Or is it just like beat Realm Reborn and then start doing raids? Because I feel like it's kind of just do the last quest and then do raids. Like, I don't think there's really a way to get better equipment now. Like, especially not equipment that's really going to make much of a difference. So, like, that's kind of a shame. Equipment, like, legitimately means nothing until quote-unquote post-game. I know it's not really post-game, but, you know, doesn't really matter till level 50 what you're equipping, in a general sense. Which I think is just kind of a shame. It's not a horrible problem or anything, but a bit of a shame. So I'm really just getting to level 50 and then doing the final quests. I don't have anything else to do. Yo, Ire! Holy crap, man. Thank you so much for the 3,000 bits. That is incredibly generous of you. Thank you, man. I just feel like you're kind of at a weird standstill until you beat Realm Reborn. Like, from the moment you start the game until you beat Realm Reborn, the answer to get stronger is always just do the next quest. You know what I mean? Like, the whole idea of doing raids, replaying dungeons, getting equipment, the materia system, mastering different classes, like, all of that isn't really anything that's going to help you. Or it's just completely locked out until you beat Realm Reborn. Which is a, you know, if you're playing the game casually, a 40 to 50 hour venture. And a lot of the things that I've talked about that would have made that journey through the beginning of the game a bit more exciting, they took out. So now it's really just get to the end of Realm Reborn. Like, if a newer player were to come up to me and be like, what should I be doing? My first question would be, have you beaten Realm Reborn yet? And if their answer was no, I would say beat Realm Reborn. Because, like, what else are you going to do? Other than, you know, goofy, just fun stuff. But, like, if you're trying to get stronger, that's really the only thing to do. Can you do Palace of the Dead now? Is there a reason to do Palace of the Dead now? Why do Palace of the Dead? When I get to level 50, it unlocks like half the game and gets me a full set of equipment. Right, but you're leveling up just as fast. I mean, like, yeah, do Realm Reborn, and then if you get level locked, then do Palace of the Dead, sure. But other than that, and you're not going to get level locked until the very end now. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, the gameplay loop feels a bit odd now that they've kind of fast-tracked everything. Like, originally, you would do a couple main quests, and then you would team up with your friends to do a dungeon, or do levies, or try to get better equipment, or go do fates, or like do the Palace of the Dead, whatever you can to level up to the point where you can do the next story quests. But now it's just like, do story quests. Do story quests till you're 50. Anything else is wasting your time. I did it again. Like, anything else is wasting your time. Because you're just going to get better stuff the moment you do the next story quest. And the next story quest is almost always available. See what I'm saying? Like, just the general gameplay loop is very, very linear for the first 50 to 60 hours until you beat Realm Reborn. Which, you know, if you're speed running it, it's not going to take it that long. But if this is your first time ever playing, then yeah, you're kind of just doing story quests for a very long time. You know, I enjoy the story quest, but if you were someone that wasn't really into story questing and you were someone that, like, was really into min-maxing and raiding, like, if you're someone coming over from World of Warcraft and you don't care about story, you don't care about Final Fantasy, you don't care about Sid and the icons, and like, you're here to do raids and you're here to play with your friends and you're here to min-max and get really strong, the first 50 hours of the game I feel like are going to be incredibly boring. Do you agree? Like, I honestly think that, because I know a lot of people that, like, play MMOs, they don't give a crap, but they just skip all the story, skip everything. You know, it's all about just the post-game rating. Which, to be fair, if you skip the cutscenes, it would drastically shorten, you know, it'd be like more like 20 or 30 hours probably. But I just feel like it'd be really boring for someone coming over from World of Warcraft or RuneScape or something. I feel like you'd be pretty bored because there's no, like I said, if you're someone coming over from World of Warcraft and you ask somebody, what's the best way to get to raids? They're just going to say, do Realm Reborn. Like, just do Realm Reborn. Literally ignore everything else. Don't do levies, don't do side quests, don't do dungeons, don't do raid. Like, just do Realm Reborn until you're 50. And then everything opens up and then things matter. Don't worry about materia, don't worry about equipment, like, just do Realm Reborn as quick as possible. Which is just kind of a shame, like, that it couldn't be a bit more balanced. But, you know, that's a bit of their fault for playing the game that way, when it is a Final Fantasy game, but... Or buy gold. Buy a skip. You said there's like a level skip you can buy, right? So that's even worse. I mean, at least it's there, I guess, but... that's not really helping the problem. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say at that point it's kind of their fault for playing the game that way. Like, I don't think they can complain about how long it's taking them to get to the end when the game, first and foremost, is a Final Fantasy game with a story and stuff. Like, that's their prerogative to play the first 30 hours ignoring everything. But... yeah, right. What do you guys think about a story skip? Do you think it should exist? Like, let me ask you this. In a general MMO, do you think you should be able to buy your way to endgame? And then follow up, in Final Fantasy XIV, do you think you should be able to buy your way to endgame? Because in a regular MMO, I could understand the argument a bit more. in Final Fantasy XIV, I feel like the story holds more weight. In it being a Final Fantasy game, I feel like, you know, I don't know, it's part of the experience to at least see the story or go through the motions. Don't like it, but I understand why it exists. Seems like everyone is pretty against it. Numbery said, don't mind it if they want to do it that way. I mean, I feel that way about regular MMOs. I feel like in regular MMOs, if that's the way you want to play, who am I to judge? But in Final Fantasy XIV, it somehow feels more cheap to do it. I don't know. It feels like the journey should be more of the experience in a Final Fantasy game. Should I try to fight this Lich King? Might be doable. I'll go in continuity. I'll read that in just a second after I'm done dying to this Lich King. Yeah, I don't think this might be above my pay grade here. I don't know, I'm at least doing damage. It's gonna depend on how well my Chocobo heals me, I think. My heal is too far away. Yeah, my heal is too far away. My heal takes too long to come back at this moment. Had a friend who wanted to get an alt to endgame immediately to raid with friends, bought story skip and level skip, got raid ready in 6 hours, skipping all cutscenes and Endwalker. Do you feel like... Were you happy that he did that so you could play with him? Or were you like... I spent 500 hours getting here and you got here in 6 hours. My playthrough now feels irrelevant. Because I feel like I'd kind of feel the latter, but at the same time, I got the experience of playing the game and having fun for all those hours, and he didn't. So... he went back and did it later. I feel like that's surprising. I feel like 99% of players that buy a skip never go back and do the content. I'm pretty certain in that, actually. I'd be willing to bet a hefty amount of money that at least 90% of people that buy skips do not go back and do the content they skip. Maybe with Final Fantasy XIV, that percentage is a bit lower, because I could imagine people just buying the skip the very first time they played the game and then realize they really, really like it and then go back. Like, I could see that, actually. I could see that, actually. Like, if you never played the game and you just immediately bought the skip and then you realized, like, wow, this game's actually really dope and I just skipped so much of it. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. See, now with other games like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty or Need for Speed, like, no one's buying the Need for Speed pass that gets them all the cars and then, like, restarting the game and unlocking all the cars. Like, there's no way. Like, there's a very specific reason why they buy that. But I see your point, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Because they're just testing out the raids to see if it's fun. And then they kind of realize, like, oh, I skipped... I've, you know, locked myself out of enjoying a huge amount of the game. So they go back and do it. That makes sense. I take back what I said. I think you're right. I was thinking about it in the frame of like GTA or, well, Need for Speed, games like that, or even something like RuneScape. Like, I don't know what exactly you can buy in RuneScape, but a more like grindy MMO would make a lot of sense. I don't think it's... Well, I think it is a bit of judging. I think I'd be exaggerating if I didn't say that some people judge people that skip. But I think a lot of it comes from... It feels like your playthrough isn't as... important. Or like you spend all the time getting to where you are, you want to feel like other people have to do the same kind of thing. I think a lot of what makes the MMO, like for me, a lot of what makes the MMO experience fun is like getting to a point where people look at your character and think, wow, I'd have to spend 80 hours to get to where they are. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the experience, I think, is being like a big head honcho of the community and being like, yeah, you'd have to spend a long time and have a lot of knowledge of the game to get to where I am. And with skips, it kind of gets rid of that. And it feels like anyone could be in your shoes in 5 hours. It's not... That doesn't mean that, like... that's the only reason you should play MMOs, but that's definitely part of it, I think. I mean, I remember back in like World of Warcraft days when people would brag about how many characters they have at level 80. Like, that was a big thing to like brag about. Was like, I got 4 characters at 80, and you know, that was kind of a braggadocious thing to do. Yeah, you weren't here for that, but I bumped Death You out to tier 2 so that it would make room for Death You discount. So Death You discount could be a tier 1 because everyone wanted to use Death You discount. Yeah, it depends on what the skip is too. You know, if you're just skipping story content, I don't know if anyone is like bragging about the fact that they beat the story content. It's more of like the post-game equipment and all the different outfits you have and stuff, and I don't think the skip gets you any of that. What do you think about buying a skip? Is that the best way to do it? Is buying a skip like cheap or like greedy by the developer to make you buy a skip? Oh no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that bragging is good or anything. I'm just saying that like part of the MMO experience is showing off what you have. I think that's pretty fair to say. Like, I think that's a lot of people that play MMOs, they're either showing off their house or showing off their character, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of part of the experience. like I said, back in the World of Warcraft days when I used to go to school, I didn't play World of Warcraft, but a lot of people that I talked to played World of Warcraft, and they would brag all the time about how many characters they have at level 80 and yada yada, you know? So, like, I think that's part of the experience, and having, like, the skip takes that away somewhat. Is it a good or bad thing? I don't know. Maybe it's better. Maybe less people brag because their skip exists now, and maybe that makes for a better environment. But I was just pointing it out, like, that does take away a bit of why people play MMOs, I think. Because I do think that's, like, a big part of it. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it takes away some of the toxicity of being better than other people, you know? So, is it really strange? Because to me, it sounds really strange. Is it really strange that the developers don't recommend something they sell? Isn't that really odd? Like, just from looking at it from outside, it's like, how you're the one selling it, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't recommend it, don't sell it. But I understand why they do. But it's just funny that the developers would literally not recommend something that they're offering. That's, like, really bizarre. Like, if I told my mom that, she'd be like, what? Just don't sell it. Without understanding the nuances of, like, we need to have this here for the players, right? But if I were to tell my mom, like, hey, there's this MMO where you can buy to skip half the game, and the developers actively don't recommend it, but they still put it on the store, she'd be like, are they on drugs? Like, that makes no sense. They're the ones that run the store. Without understanding the nuance of, like, some of the players want specific things that even the developers don't necessarily want, but they need to make their player base happy. Binary, thank you for the gifted sub to Tristere. Thank you. And Ataru, thank you as well. I think that, like, well, I think that both sides have a fair argument, to be honest. I think that people that don't enjoy RPG stories and they just want to raid, it makes sense for them to buy skips. But it also makes sense for people that put a lot of time into the game to feel like their gameplay and their time investment is a bit invalidated by people just spending money to get past everything. You know? Like, if I beat the entirety of Final Fantasy XVI, and then I bought the DLC, and then I beat the DLC boss, I can say I beat the DLC boss. And to you, that means, all right, he beat the entire game, bought the DLC, and beat the DLC boss. That's an epic gamer right there. But then someone else, if you could buy a skip of the original game and just go right to the DLC boss, and they beat the DLC boss, they could say the same thing. They could say, I beat the DLC boss. You know? And they didn't do 90% of the work that I did. Quote unquote work. In the end, this is all video games. But, you know, they did 10% of what I did, and they can still claim the same thing. That, in a way, invalidates the work I put into the game, right? And it sounds silly because it's all video games in the end. It's supposed to be for fun, but MMOs are not just for fun. I mean, this is a whole community of people that do a lot of different things, and being someone that's at the very top of the community that has done everything in the game comes with some sort of, you know, swag points. Someone that's done everything in the game and has a maxed character on every role and is the highest tier on a guild and has a house with a billion gil of stuff in it, like, that comes with an amount of swag. Like, you could legitimately make friends with that amount of swag. Like, as goofy as it sounds, you could definitely use that swag to be influential. Does that make sense? Like, you could own all that stuff, and people could think, wow, he's a cool dude, and then they start playing the game with you, and then through that you create friendships. Like that is genuinely like gives you some influence. Again, like influence in the community, right? So in a way, you're invalidating all that stuff that person did to get up to the very top to have that influence by letting other people skip stuff. And I'm not, like I said, I'm only making the argument. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but this is the argument that makes sense if you're against skipping. Is like, yeah, that person's influence is a bit invalidated by the fact that other people got there quicker, you know? If you worked and you worked and you worked to be the best of the Final Fantasy XIV community, and you use that to whatever, maybe you're an influencer, maybe you have maybe you use it to get a lot of followers on Twitch, maybe you use it to start your own YouTube channel, maybe whatever. People are going to look at that and be like, wow, he did everything there is to do. He started from nothing and look at him now. Like that, there's an amount of swag points they get for doing that. And that is a bit invalidated if someone else did the same exact thing and claimed the same exact thing, but they actually skipped like 40 hours of content. You know? That does genuinely make sense. Like, that's genuinely a thing to be like, yeah, that kind of sucks. Kind of sucks that these two people in the game, in the eyes of the game, have done the same exact amount of work, even though they haven't, right? But I also get the argument of, like, some people don't want to do the story. Some people don't play the game for the story. Some people just want to raid, and that's totally fine. And people can play games the way they want to play them. And that's not the gamer's fault. It's their fault for even having a skip in the first place, even though they don't personally recommend it. You know, don't hate the player, hate the game. That's definitely fair. That's definitely valid. I think that, me personally, given that Final Fantasy XIV is a main entry in the Final Fantasy series, and I feel like a big part of what makes Final Fantasy great is the storytelling and the lore and the connections and all that, and the fact that the developers themselves don't recommend you do it, I think I'm kind of on the side of not having skips in this particular MMO. In other MMOs, I think it makes more sense. In other games, I think it makes more sense. Me personally, I would never buy a skip for like anything. It would have to be a very, very specific case. I am someone that wants to get every single hour out of a video game. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone that watches me that I try to get every single hour out of every single game I play. Even games like with Trophy Quest, I play through the game normally first before looking at the trophies, which a lot of times means I have to play through the game again because I miss stuff, but I like the fact that I get more gameplay out of it. So for me, skips are like nothing I would ever buy. But looking at it from an unbiased perspective, my opinion is that I think maybe this game shouldn't have had one. But for other MMOs and stuff, I think it makes sense, honestly. Because I do agree with Numbry saying, like, you know, people should play games the way they want to play them. And you have to look at it from a developer's point of view. You have to look at it as, okay, we have 50,000 World of Warcraft players that are all coming over to Final Fantasy XIV. If we make them all play through the 60-hour story before they're allowed to raid, we're going to get maybe 5,000 of them that stick with the game. If we offer a skip, we're going to get 30,000 of them to stick with the game, and they're going to buy the skip. That's a pretty done deal from the developer's point of view, right? Like, you'd be a fool to not at least offer the skip. Even if you say, we don't really recommend this, like, you'd be an absolute fool not to offer it. So, from a developer's point of view, it makes sense. Definitely. And there was that time where this game took over, and a lot of World of Warcraft players and a lot of RuneScape players were coming over. There was that moment where, like, it was really, really taken over, and that was like the perfect time to make sure that the intro experience was good because they wanted all those people to stick with it. So No, it all makes sense, really. Definitely all makes sense. The the FOMO in this game is weird because, like, you don't really, like I said before, you don't really miss out on anything just rushing. In fact, you're wasting your time if you're not rushing. Which I still think is a bit of a shame from a gameplay perspective, but you truly are wasting your time if you're trying to, like, grind dungeons right now to get good loot. Like, just get to 50, you'll get everything you need, and then actually have the ability to get better stuff. And that shouldn't be the case. You should never feel like you're wasting your time. That's one of the greatest things about Skyrim. I'm not a big fan of Elder Scrolls style games, but I loved Skyrim because it never felt like I was wasting my time. Everything I did felt like it was a good use of my time, no matter what it was. I could be rotting in a dungeon cell and I was somehow leveling up some random skill. You know, like, it always felt like my time was well spent. And that's what I loved about Skyrim. That's what sold me on Skyrim. Because at first it felt really, like, overbearing and it was just too much, and I was like, I don't understand. It was, like, too much at first, but then when I realized, like, oh, I could just go do whatever I want, and it's all going to end up mattering in the end. Like, it's all going to help in the end. That's where it really started to click for me, and I started to really enjoy it. When I stopped worrying about, like, rushing the main story or doing things that specifically I wanted my character to do or whatever, and I just started doing whatever was fun. It's like, oh, there's a dungeon here, that looks fun, let's do that. Oh, there's a puzzle here, that looks fun, let's do that. You know, that's when it really clicked for me and I started to have a blast playing it. But, you know, I feel the exact opposite in this game. In this game, I really need to get past Realm Reborn. Then I can start just doing whatever, and it'll all kind of make sense in the end. Like, it'll all be worth it. Right now, if I were to go do dungeons, I would just be completely wasting my time. Other than, you know, having fun. But, you know, this isn't the type of game I play when I specifically want to have, like, a blast with the mechanics. Like, it's more of a grindy game than a... I'm having an absolute blast pushing these buttons right now. It's more of the long grind that's the fun. So, yeah. Oh yeah, other than the main experience. Yeah, I tried to do the Odin quests and it was just locked behind ARR. So you think doing the doing this would be better for XP? Because this is level 44, so I figured it wouldn't be a good idea to do for XP. What I should be doing is Fates, but I was just talking, so I was just running around punching stuff while I talked. Okay, maybe I'll do that next time then, to get up to 50. Binary, thank you so much for the gifted sub to Diff. Appreciate it. Either way, it's not a big grind. I mean, I'm already almost there. It's not a big deal. But I just meant, like, you know, in terms of equipment or whatever. Now, one thing I will say that's kind of cool are the unlock quests. Those feel like you're really setting yourself up for later, you know. if you do the unlock quests now as opposed to just finishing Realm Reborn and then doing them later, you're kind of setting yourself up so you don't have to later go around unlocking a bunch of stuff. So that's cool. That's definitely one thing you could point at to say, like, you know, that's that would be a good use of your time. No, I didn't look into roulette because, like I said, by the time I got through the fates I wanted to do before, I was already at level 49, and then by the time I did the 49 level quests, I was like halfway to 50. And then we started having this conversation, so I just talked while I ran around punching stuff. Maybe I can do a roulette quest at the start of next week to get up to 50, or I'll do that dungeon. Isn't roulette with people, though? I'd kind of like to just finish Realm Reborn before I play with anyone, since I've done it all solo up to this point. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll wait on that till I finish. But I might try that dungeon next time. Is there one more fate I can do? These fates are either really random, or you can, like, clear them all and then have to wait and then have to come back. I'm guessing the levies. We got a friend request. I'm guessing the levies are also about the same as regular quests. Wait, you said quests are the highest experience? Really? I was getting poop experience from side quests, unless you're talking main quests. You know, I started doing a hunt log earlier, and then it just felt like it was kind of a waste of time. I do like the hunting log mechanic. Like, it's fun. It's fun to do these. I have to catch up on them, though. So right now they're obviously not giving me crap. How do I switch? Oh, there we go. I have to go fight these things though, right? So I'm gonna be making like poop XP for a while. I do get 2,500. Well, I guess 2,500 is nothing at the moment. I think we'll do the dungeon or just some fates at the start of next week, and then we'll be good to go. Then I can finish, and then we can do the fun stuff, and then once I'm moved on from Fantathon and playing it on my own, I'll do a bunch of live stuff with community members, and that'll get me like blast in the head to be able to do the DLC. So how does the, that's a good question to ask. How does the level balance work with the DLC? Can I, like, just, after Realm Reborn, can I just fly through the story quests, or is it going to be like I'm level locked every 2 seconds then? We're just going to do a couple things. We're going to do a couple fun things just to try it out. Like, we're gonna do Gold Saucer, we're gonna try a raid. Everything is level 50 through ARR patch quests. Okay. And then does Heaven's Sword start at 51? Or 60? Something? Expansion starts at 50. And then, okay, so did they... My question is, like, did they change the XP balance to be just like Realm Reborn, where basically by doing the story quest, you're getting up the levels required to do the next story quest? Or is it more of like it used to be, where you're doing like 3 story quests and then you're having to grind for a bit? They streamlined all of it, basically, like all the DLC too. What about like the newest DLC? Did they even streamline that too? Or is like at least the newest DLC not like that? Yeah, that's why I was like saying post-game in quotes, because it's not really post-game. Like, it's the easiest way to describe it, but it's not really post-game. It's an MMO. There really is no post-game. Like, there is if you literally do every story quest and then you're like only doing raids, then I guess you'd call it post-game, but calling it post-game is a bit disingenuous. Like, it's not really, like, all of it's just the game. Yeah, I was just kind of curious, like, because they streamlined the main game so much, is that just to get you to the DLC and then it goes back to normal, or did they even make the DLC super quick now? Because I'm trying to understand their thought process behind how they want people to play this game. Do they want people to slowly grind through the story and have like a good balance between story quests and then doing other things, which feels like what they were going for at the beginning, which makes sense because they only had the main story. They didn't have DLCs yet, but feels like now they've kind of gotten rid of that idea. And they just want people to go fast. Like, they just want people to get to the end. They just want people to experience the story as quick as possible. Which isn't a bad thing, but I'm just trying to understand their mentality. Seems like they just want people to be able to experience the story without having to do a lot of nonsense. Unless they want to do a lot of nonsense. In which case, go do as much nonsense as you want. But see, I kind of like where I'm at now, where I get to do a few main quests, and then I have to go screw around for a bit. Makes it feel a bit more balanced than just constant story quest. And it feels like there's even a chance that I go do something else and get something that'll help me for the next main quest, instead of just equipping exactly what the main quest gives me. Final Fantasy XVI style of just like, whatever I get from the main quest, equip it and move on to the next main quest. But, you know, it's not really a problem. I think that's maybe a good thing to do, just so more people can experience the game and not get bogged down. And when the whole idea is to play with friends, you don't necessarily want to bog people down with doing side quests all the time. How's it going, Magic? Good to see you, man. Alright, well, I guess we will end here. It sounds like next week is going to be the finale. I know that I say that about every game, but I think we can probably comfortably say it for this. So the plan will be to finish the story out next week. And then, like I said, we'll do a couple, like, just fun little things to just kind of experience what else the game has to offer. We'll do the Gold Saucer. We'll do maybe the house dungeon, the spooky house dungeon on hard, to see what hard dungeons are like, because I think that's something I'll really enjoy. We'll try a hard primal fight, because we talked about how the mechanics are different with the primal fight, so I'd like to see that. We'll check out the Crystal Tower raid just to see how raids work. And then if we have time, we'll try some of the 2.1 quests just to kind of see how the story continues, and because people are always telling me how much better the story is once you get past Realm Reborn. I don't think it'll be shockingly better since it's just 2.1 and it's not actually the DLC yet, but we could at least check it out. So yeah, we'll just do as much as we can, and then we'll leave it there, and that'll be it for Fantathon 14, but I'll continue to play and get a better better understanding of the game and play with some of the community, and it'll be a blast. So, but yeah, I'm really interested to hear YouTube's take on some of the conversations we had today, because we had a lot of really interesting conversations, and YouTube's take on what we can do next week. And so yeah, be sure to comment, let me know. And yeah, we'll see you next week for the finale of Let's Play Final Fantasy XIV. Sounds crazy to hear, or it sounds crazy to say, but I think we will be finishing next week and moving on to what seems like it's going to be Dirge as our final bonus game. And then we will be finishing Fantathon. It's crazy, dude. Bonus game of Dirge, which is not that long of a game. And then we're on to the final game of the marathon. It's wild. But I will see you guys next week for more Let's Play Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantathon. We will see you there. Peace.